Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good afternoon. Well, actually, it's evening here. Keep saying afternoon, but it's got to be afternoon somewhere. It is the Earthmaster out here on this Wednesday night, September 13th, 2023. It's about 10:12 p.m. here, California time. And latest activity here on the globe looks like a 2.1 earthquake into the big island of Hawaii. We did have a little bit of uptick here around the world globally, but first off, I wanted to pull up quite a few folks been asking about earthquake activity this year compared to this time last year, so to speak. So we went ahead and pulled up last year from about January 1st, 2022 to up to this date, which is September 13th. So we're looking at about 91 earthquakes here of various magnitudes, including the largest, a 7.6, down into the Papua New Guinea area. Now, we did see quite a few sevens so far last year at this time. So what's that look like compared to now? Well, 99 earthquakes above 6.0. So remember, this is from January 1st, 2022 to today's date, but last year. And then also January 1st this year to today's date of obviously today. And as you can see, we've seen a little bit of earthquake activity above the levels. We're looking at probably about 8 more than what we've seen this time last year. Although we did see quite a bit of upper 7s this year compared to last year at this time. 7.6 again was the Papua New Guinea earthquake back in September 10th, 2022. And of course, the largest one so far this year, a 7.8 back in the Turkey area. Some large damaging earthquakes. That was a pretty strong sequence of large earthquakes out there earlier this year. You can kind of see here on the map areas that have not been hit. Let me see if I can pull this up here. For example, this time last year, notice the lack of earthquake activity here across the Chile region. If we pull up this year, you can see that area filled in here quite nicely. So that seismic gap eventually catches up here. New Zealand, though, look at New Zealand. Still sits down here in the quiet zone. I just don't get it. It's similar to California. I don't know what's keeping California held on. Just by a string. Well, it's not really a string, but it's a plate boundary out here, right? This one's long overdue, I believe. Many different fault systems out here long overdue in California, and the San Andreas Fault's just one of them. That's the biggest one possible, the 8.1. Until you mention the Cascadia, then we're looking at a 9.0 or greater. Which back in, let's see, when was this earthquake? M6.0, this is on the Explorer plate up here, just on the Explorer plate and the Pacific plate boundary from this year, back in April. But aside from any major mega quakes, it's still absent. Just kind of wanted to give that perspective. People asking if there's an uptick in earthquake activity this year. Well, if you call 8 above 6.0, yeah, that could be considered a little uptick, you know, but it all varies. Each year is very different. We can't really compare one year to the other, but that's what it is. All right, let's take a look at today's activity in the last 24 hours. There is that 6-pointer out in the West Chile Rise. This is a divergent boundary out here. It's a fracture zone, and looks like we did see a little bit of elevated activity here across the Peru-Chile Trench as expected. These divergent boundaries here is a separation of the sea floor. Now that's going to be right about West Chile Rise is going to be right here, roughly right about here. It doesn't really show any arrows here, but similar to the northern edge up here, this is separation which adds further strain here. Notice the arrows, these dark long arrows indicating the general GPS movement that indicates strain in this area. So whenever we see divergent boundary activity out here, always look towards the Peru-Chile Trench for some movement. The latest looks like a 4.4, 204 kilometers deep, adding some strain up here across the Peru-Chile Trench. Into the Costa Rica area, looks like a little earthquake activity. Earlier This evening, a 4.5 just off the coast here, 10 kilometers deep, extreme southern end of the Middle American Trench. Over here around Puerto Rico area, a couple smaller quakes there in the last 24 hours. Nothing major, though. This is actually a pretty good drop-off in terms of the multitude of earthquakes out there in recent times. Normally that area can see some pretty good swarming. Up into the Canada area, 1.3 being reported by the USGS earlier. Into, looks like a portion of the St. Lawrence Seaway. A lot of plate dynamic setup out here. There's a lot of history involved here in this making of this seaway. But a little earthquake up there for now. Rest of the states look pretty quiet, aside from some general earthquake activity across the oil fields, the Yellowstone National Park area. A 1.1. Well, let's double check that. I have to confirm. I just can't take someone's word for it, because in this day and age, you know, it's just one of those things. This activity, okay, I have to. I'm sorry, I have to. Because I don't want anyone thinking that this is earthquake activity. It doesn't really look like earthquake activity. It's a signature, right? Back, what do we got here? We're looking at 8 hours or so ago, right? 2200 to 1400. Yeah, about 8 hours. I want to double check this, okay? Just real quick. I believe these were thunderstorms that blew through here, and I know people don't like to hear it. They'd rather hear a little bit of fear-mongering, but I'm all about the truth here. So I'm going to go back here on the radar imagery, and we're going to look here. It's my location out here around Chico. Obviously, thunderstorm activity here occurring right now, but I want to check out the last, we're looking about the last 8 hours or so ago around the Yellowstone area. Mount St. Helens we'll get to in a minute. That's kind of on my mind. Here's the last 12 hours. We'll probably see some large-scale thunderstorm activity here for a couple hours. No storms. 8 hours ago, right about here. Look at this band of storms that blew through there, right? That is what we're seeing. Those are thunderstorms popping up here. This is now magma movement. It is not harmonic tremor. That is strictly thunderstorm activity. Wind events, hail, heavy rain. You know, and I will continue to announce that. Even over here around Hebgen Lake, that showed that as well. One, if they were not familiar with that signature, would assume that maybe there's magma brewing underneath the northwestern corner of Yellowstone National Park. And some people can fearmonger it, but not on this channel. No way is that happening. This is thunderstorm activity. So I kind of like to point that out for you guys to see that. Just the facts, ma'am. Right? That's all it's about. All right, let's go ahead and move on here through that area. Nothing of concern, really, unless you're caught underneath one of those thunderstorms out there. Probably not the place to be there in the mountains. All right, what do we got going on here across Mount St. Helens? That's a good question, right? Look at one of these earthquakes here, 2.1, 14 kilometers deep. We're getting some deeper scale movement activity out here, and that's somewhat of a larger one in this swarm of activity in the past couple weeks. I'm going to bring up the last 30 days of magnitudes here. And we're looking at, well, 150 earthquakes here across Mount St. Helens in the last 30 days. Most of this here, I would probably consider it to be in the last 2 weeks, but we don't have a two-week option. The largest magnitude there, 2.4 back in end of August. Today's earthquake is the secondary largest earthquake there, and deeper, 14 kilometers deep. Let me see if this has been reviewed. It has been reviewed by one of the well-paid professionals out there across the USGS. So I'm kind of watching this. I'd like to know. I really haven't heard anything from the USGS aside from everything's normal. This is typical background activity. I don't recall the last time I've seen 150 earthquakes up here at Mount St. Helens. I watch this a lot. We've been doing this a lot here. So, and obviously Mount Rainier has seen swarms. Mount Hood as well. Mount Hood's pretty quiet down here over the last 30 days. But, you know, these volcanoes do get activity. But 150 earthquakes? Yeah. Let's go ahead and see what we got going on here for Mount St. Helens. This is the latest information statement. Now, this is, you know, you really can't hide this data, right? This is all public information as it should be. Transparency at its best. Even if there's like some major swarm volcanic activity occurring, you know, I think that'd be illegal to hide that type of activity from the public. Looking at the latest seismograph station here on the SEP station, still shows some activity. Now, the earthquake in question, that 2.1, occurred at about 12:48 local time. 12:48 local time. So that's going to be right about, I'm guessing it's going to be that one, right? Somewhere in here. But that's just one of how many others out here. I'm not going to go out and count all of these, but, you know, some of these may be rock falls. Some of them may be wind events. But there's definitely still some earthquake activity occurring out here. Let's check out the larger ones. You know, that's up here at the crater area, the very extreme region of Mount St. Helens. Let's see how many of those showed up here. Looks like a couple of those, right? I think that one right there is going to be that 2.1, to be honest. So some of this other earthquake activity is obviously below that. But there's, you know, there's a handful more of earthquake activity out there at the Mount St. Helens region. There is some, where to go? Oh, goodness. Did I close that down? As long as we don't have another night like last night where my mouse kind of just went off the computer desktop here and shut down everything. It's crazy. Gas emissions up here across the Mount St. Helens area. Let's see what we got here. Relative humidity. You know, all this has a lot to do with the general weather up there. But volcanic activity, carbon dioxide, looks to be somewhat minimal for now on that chart. Oh, goodness, I don't know why I do that. The temperature up here, we've seen a couple spikes up here at the extreme area of Mount St. Helens where the, you know, somewhat of the steam coming through there. A couple little spikes. And also, I keep doing it. How many times am I going to do it, George? Hydrogen sulfide. Somewhat, well, pretty consistent, looks like, for the most part. But we did see here, where is it? Right here. Sulfur dioxide, a little elevated activity here. And this is about the start of the swarm back in the end of August, early September now. Like I say, it's been about 2 weeks now since we've had off and on swarming. But look at that. Pretty good spike. That's obviously a sign of volcanic gas, right? We get it. But over the last, you know, couple days or so, things have mellowed out. But I'm still a little uncertain as to what's going on below this area. You know, are we looking at potentially maybe some elevated activity there across Mount St. Helens? I don't know. That's why I'm covering it day in, day out. I think it's something to watch pretty closely. I wish some of these stations here were a little bit more operable and new and recent. Here's some of the GPS displacements from 2020. But I'm not living in 2020 right now. I'm living in 2023. So this does absolutely no good. We can go ahead and check out some of these latest stations here. Let me see if we got anything. I wish this one right here was working. See if it is. 2018, folks. Who wants to travel back to 2018? I don't know. 2018 wasn't too bad of a year. So that's that station. Where's let's see if we got anything newer out here. 2022, 2000 okay, this is in 2-year intervals, so that's 2021, 2022, 2020. I guess this one's recent, right? If you really think about it, this one's got to be recent because it's not quite 2024. We're getting to the end of it. So the obvious seasonal changes out here for vertical displacement are, you know, look at the average trend here. It's going down. There's seasonal uplifts here. It doesn't look like we're seeing any major uptick that you would see across the inactive volcano, at least according to this data. And that is, I believe this is actually legit activity here. But you know, it's It's going through that little seasonal uptick right now. So we'll continue to watch that, folks, obviously, and see how this plays out. I keep covering it because there's still earthquake activity happening there at Mount St. Helens. Northern California, very minimal at best. Just a handful of smaller quakes out there across the northern portion of the state. Across the west coast, only one earthquake here near the Pinnacles area, 3.4 earlier this evening, right smack dab on the San Andreas Fault. Looks like right around the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault. And a couple other smaller quakes there as well. No major swarms to announce there across the southern portion of the state. Alaska has been seeing a little bit of uptick here across the area, right around the Gulf of Alaska. Latest earthquake. Well, that's... yeah, we got to go back here. I keep forgetting to check that out. That earthquake from last night at 4.1, some minimal activity there across the Gulf of Alaska. Some movement across Denali as well. The Big Island of Hawaii, notice Kilauea Volcano not showing anything. Well, that's very typical during an eruption, right? Because the magma has found its way to the surface. There's no need to create earthquakes and all the cracking of the rock and whatnot. Everything's just hunky-dory because it's finding its way to the surface. It almost looks like there's a bunch of new cameras out here. Let's see what we got. Look at this. F1 cam. That's going to be the thermal cam out here. Obviously, things are going to be somewhat elevated with that. KW cam. Still looks like the eruption is ongoing there. There's a look at Lava Lake, Kilauea Volcano. Here is the V1 cam. Oh my goodness, look at that. Wouldn't that be awesome just to stand up there in the HVO tower and observe nature's beauty? I'm not even joking. That's just that's quite impressive to say the least there. A couple other ones here as well. B2 cam. They got tons of cams, and at least their cams are working, right? I like that. That's taxpayer money being put to good use out there. We appreciate it. There's a little bit overview, a little bit better overview, and broader view of the lake, Lava Lake area, showing that continued activity. S1 cam out there as well. Just a beautiful sight. So we know that things are still very active out there across the Kilauea Volcano, and that will probably continue for a little while. Here's the latest information here from the USGS on Kilauea Volcano. The eruption that began back on September 10th here, just a couple days ago, continues to this date. The eruptive activity is confined there to the down-dropped block of the crater and within the summit called Dara. No unusual activity has been noted across the east rift zones. And the reason why they mention that is because of potential of new fissures opening up out there across those rift zones. But for now, they're pretty quiet, and that's a good thing, I think. All right, let's go ahead and move on here. Take a look at the broader view of things. Last earthquake looks like a 4.5. Deeper movement activity here across the Tonga Trench once again. 502 kilometers for that 4.5. Let's go ahead and check out the GeoNet servers here. Down for New Zealand, looks like little earthquake activity across the North Island region. But, for a major plate boundary, that's going to be expected there with some minimal movement. I'm still waiting for some major adjustment to take place there. Not hoping it will, but it's going to happen. It's best to be prepared down there across New Zealand. You guys sit on a major plate boundary. I don't think you need me to tell you. If you're up to speed on earthquake activity across the New Zealand area, there's many hazards. You got a subduction zone, you got a plate boundary, and you got other risks out there that pose some major natural disasters out there across the New Zealand region. Java Sea, that 5.1 from late last night, that's a super deep earthquake. We haven't really seen any adjustment further upstream. A look at the GeoNet servers here. There's been a handful of smaller quakes, but nothing major. I still expect that maybe to kick up there following that deeper scale movement here soon. Japan, pretty quiet. Some older movement quakes there. Kurokama Trench got one earthquake from late last night, or early this morning. It looks like 4.7. 29 kilometers deep. A little bit of activity out here around the Red Sea. And one earthquake out into central Italy with a 4.1. That was earlier, much earlier this morning as well. All right, space weather activity real quick, then we'll jump off here. Getting a radio blackout right now. Perfect timing. The moon is interfering with the data coming in there, so that's why we're looking at that daily blackout of data. Prior to that, looks like some very minimal flaring activity at best. A lot of these sunspots are not harboring anything to write home to grandma about. Maybe this area right here looks like it's grown somewhat drastic. Well, I can't say drastically, but it has increased in the number of complex structures there within that core. So we'll watch that. That does harbor a little bit of potential there for some flaring. Just looking at that. Right now, the main threat, well, at least flaring activity, 95% chance for a C flare, M flare, 40, X flare around 5% chance with a 5% chance of proton events there. No major roars expected. Far as Hurricane Lee goes, just double check that, see what we got here for the latest information on Hurricane Lee, which it looks like it's weakening drastically out here. 105 mile per hour sustained winds, dropping like a rock as we head northward. Not really expecting this to turn into a major hurricane at all. It's had its chance, and the show's over. It's going to miss Bermuda here. It may hit portions up here around Maine, New Hampshire area. These guys are underneath a tropical storm watch. Now, the cone of uncertainty here is a ways away from this area, but they do issue this just in case. There's still potential of hurricane watch up here in the pink around portions of Maine and over in the rest of this area here. But obviously it looks like 8 p.m. Saturday. It's supposed to be tropical storm. That's what they are estimating out there. Let's check out the latest numerical model here. Let's double check this and see what we got here for the where are we at? North Atlantic, I guess that'll work here. There's the Hurricane Lee out there spinning out in the Atlantic. We'll put this into motion here, and we'll see. Obviously, got the states over here. Put this into motion, and as you can see, it does look like it appears to hit the main area, but again, pretty weak. It does weaken quite drastically as it heads up that way, and for the most part, most of the hurricanes are going to stay well off the coast here. As far as any specific changes in the weather models out here, orange is obviously high pressure, blue indicated by tropical systems here, and low pressure and cooler weather out here across the east for now. But that's disappearing, it looks like. It's supposed to be 103 tomorrow here in California. It's not cool. But that's not going to last for long. Look at that deep troughing going on out here across the west coast. That's good news for us here in California. That could bring a shot of some rainfall and much cooler temperatures there across the area of the west coast. This is the September 25th time period. Of course, day and night. I'll take 70s. I'll definitely take 70s. I'm not against that, but it looks like, yeah, these are well below normal temperature. 70s in September is rather rare, but again, I'll take that. And it does look like the West Coast area is looking at some cooler temperatures here towards the third week of September. They're cooking, absolutely cooking up there in Canada. As far as the eastern portion of the country goes, there's definitely some warm temperatures coming up. I don't see any major cool down there for you guys, so we'll take the blue. You guys can have the red. It's pretty much split right down the states here. And, of course, right now I'm out here in California, so I'd rather have the cooler temperatures instead of this. These are well above temperatures out here across a good portion of the eastern states and up into Canada. All right, guys, I'm jumping off here. Have a good day. Stay safe. And don't forget to sign up for that 100,000 subscriber giveaway. We're doing that at the end of this month. We'll be giving away prizes there to 10 people. Watch the video If you got any questions on it, feel free to email me at earthmastermail@gmail.com. We are doing the member giveaway, monthly member giveaway here in just 2 days. On the 15th, we'll be giving away the prizes there to the members. All right. Have a good one. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow sometime. Peace out.